It has large hooves, an almost hairless, greasy hide. It's a powerful swimmer and very disease-resistant. The Asian water buffalo is the king of the wetlands. Since its domestication around 5,000 years ago in Southeast Asia and on the Indian subcontinent, the buffalo has accompanied mankind around the world and changed our lives on every continent. Thanks to its great capacity for adapting, it has succeeded in making itself at home in many wetlands, sometimes even beyond our expectations. $18 million years ago, a small, discreet, and solitary mammal lived in the forests of Eurasia. From Europe to present-day Pakistan, he liked to graze in damp glades and marshes on the edge of the woods. The animal looked much like the smallest antelopes of today. This many-horned beast is called Eotragus. It is the common ancestor of a now famous family, the Bovidae. The populations of this mysterious creature evolved over time to adapt to the different natural environments of the world. 5 to 10 million years ago, they gave birth to about 20 species. Man chose some to domesticate them and then linked his destiny to this incredible animal family. This is how zebu, yak, water buffalo, and ox were born. In inland Thailand, on the edge of Chonburi province, these swamps would have been almost unusable without the help of the water buffalo. A powerful animal capable of working its legs in the water or mud. The bovid, many of which have been domesticated here, is still at the heart of many Thai families' daily life and remains an esteemed and respected partner. Human and buffalo have learned to work together, like here in the sugarcane fields. As a more mechanized agriculture becomes the norm today, Anand is among those who advocate for using the buffalo.
I don't need gasoline to work in the fields. I plow with my buffalo. And the buffalo dung, gathered in a pile of manure, serves as fertilizer. In the old days, if you wanted to farm the land, you had to cut down trees to make a clearing. Cultivable land was limited to the area that had been cleared. The buffalo helped with this task, and many people have kept them for farm work until today. My parents raised buffalo for work on the farm, for growing rice, sugarcane, and sweet potatoes. When it became my generation's turn, I chose to continue breeding them. Even today, it's my passion. I pass this passion on to my children and grandchildren. I chose to continue raising buffalo and breeding them. Most families have stopped breeding. It's only the people like me who have known the buffalo since childhood who haven't resigned themselves to giving up. My relationship with Chow Luang is special. This animal is really part of my family. He's been with us for a long time. We understand each other well. He listens to me. Because we have this ancient bond, he faithfully obeys me. To make him feel good before he rests, I always clean him. His ears should be clean. I think the farm is important for the children, and I teach them how to keep it going. If there's something they've never done, I show them how to do it well. This way, they'll learn.
Anand knows it. Transmission to his children is essential so that the bonds between human and animal, woven over centuries, will not be broken.
This is my heritage. I tell them to maintain it. Because it's a connection, and if you don't keep it going, it will disappear. We have to take care of it as long as we can.
The unconditional love that Anand feels for his buffalo is the exception nowadays. Though the animal has been an essential partner for the inhabitants of these regions, it has experienced a serious decline over the last 50 years. The Thai herd has fallen from 6 million head in 1980 to only 1 million today. Between rural exodus and competition from small, cheap tractors, the domestic buffalo is losing ground. For years, villages have suffered from depopulation as the majority of young people left to live in the city. Of those who stayed and practiced agriculture, many think they must use a tractor. Yet farming with the buffalo and learning how to use them is now being made easier. Kason Kasavit School is committed to maintaining the buffalo in the fields over the use of tractors. Here, young farmers learn how to lead the animal and to work together with it. Every Wednesday, pairs of man buffalo or woman buffalo are supervised by a teacher. They train and deepen their understanding. Luxika is a diligent student. The buffalo I brought to the training center today is called Nuan. I got her 8 months ago. She has a wild character. She still doesn't like the presence of human beings too much. Today is the 3rd time that she has been hitched up. She's beginning to become more obedient. She's a little easier to manage, and she listens well to her trainer. This is my first time plowing. It's not that hard. It's a real learning experience. It's fun and stimulating. I take care of her like a friend. I'm raising her, so yes, I like her a lot. I speak to her. I stroke her with my hand, her face and neck, and I say, "Be careful, don't be stubborn, listen." If students like Luxika and her buffalo can benefit from training like this, it's thanks to an initiative launched in 1979 by the Thai King Rama IX. To avoid the inevitable disappearance of the domestic buffalo, he created the Buffalo Bank and its One Home, One Buffalo program. Thanks to this structure, farmers are loaned a buffalo for 5 years on condition they don't sell it. The objective is to promote ancient farming techniques and to allow the farmer to develop their own livestock. At the end of these 5 years, the farmer must give a buffalo back to the organization and then become the owner of the original loaned buffalo. I've lived together with buffalo since childhood. My parents raised buffalo. My older sister had a buffalo. When it was my turn, because I love animals and because the Buffalo Bank existed, the breeding committee contacted me. Here at the center, they saw that I loved animals and even that I knew how to vaccinate them. So I got a scholarship. I'm happy because I always loved animals and now I can work with them every day. An efficient and well-managed buffalo is able to work 25,000 square feet of paddy field per day. The benefits of the school, the advice from seasoned breeders, and daily training are already being felt. While the domestic animals are in decline in their original habitat, a few hundred kilometers to the north, a relic population of wild buffaloes still survives today in the depths of the jungle. A real treasure, a few dozen wild buffalo still live in this area, well hidden in the heat of the 1,000 square miles of the large national park. To study these unique buffalo, you need to be able to spot and approach them. Norazad is a scientist with a passion for animals. He inventories, studies the evolution of this wild micropopulation, and seeks to identify the threats endangering them.
It is difficult to access this environment. The path is almost impossible to follow. Getting close to them is a challenge. The reason why there are so few wild buffalo left in Thailand is primarily because of hunting. Then there are epidemics. Another cause of the decrease in the number of wild buffalo, which I am studying at the moment, is Mimosa pigra, an invasive plant species that eliminates and replaces plants eaten by the buffalo.
To locate the buffalo, the scientist surveys the river and its banks, their favorite environment during the hottest hours of the day.
It's a real accomplishment to find a herd of wild buffalo. To be able to take a picture, to see that there are little ones, to see the different generations of buffalo in the herd. It's a great satisfaction to be able to say to yourself, they are still here. I seek to gather information and pass it on to others. We can see that in the dry season, their territory becomes concentrated on the banks of the river. The buffalo doesn't like heat. It has to swim often. They bathe to maintain a normal body temperature and stay cool and humid for as long as possible. On a physical level, the wild buffalo is larger than the domestic buffalo. The arch of the horns is wider. Regarding behavior, the wild buffalo remains wild. It is characterized by its forest habitat. It is more fearful and careful.
It is these colossi that humans set out to tame. The last remaining wild buffalo in Southeast Asia are among the largest wild bovids in the world. They can weigh up to 2,600 pounds. With domestication, humans reduced the animal's size over generations to obtain a buffalo of about 1,000 pounds. They are less dangerous, more manageable, and easier to feed. There are only 2,500 wild buffalo in the world, while the domesticated buffalo now number over 200 million on the planet. While it is difficult to determine precisely where and when this domestication took place, Some 50 kilometers away, a little-known site in central Thailand offers valuable clues. After 2 hours of walking in the forest at an altitude of 2,000 feet, the Khao Plara cave finally reveals its secrets. Norazed is going there for the first time. He discovered around 40 cave paintings made from blood-red natural pigments. They are thought to date from 3,000 to 5,000 years ago. Buffalo silhouettes are represented alongside those of humans. The frescoes seem to reveal how humans ventured to capture and tame a wild species as powerful and dangerous as the buffalo. Norazed admires the walls, adorned with representations of humans and buffalo, side by side. They are sometimes joined by a material linking them, such as ropes. This undoubtedly symbolizes a capture, an essential prerequisite for domestication. Others may illustrate agricultural work. Immortalized on these walls is the new emerging relationship between humans and the wild buffalo. They will become docile companions and quickly spread to new territories. They'll allow new conquests and change human agricultural practices. There are in fact 2 subspecies of wild water buffalo that were domesticated in Asia around 5000 BC. They will give us the river buffalo in the west and the swamp buffalo in the east. The swamp buffalo spread from subtropical China to eastern India via the islands of the Indian Ocean. This permitted the development of agriculture in wetlands, in particular the cultivation of rice. As for its cousin, the river buffalo, the peoples of the Middle East adopted it at the dawn of the first millennium all the way to Mesopotamia, and from the 6th century onto the Nile Delta, where it became the companion of the Egyptians, who were lovers of dairy products long before its arrival, as revealed by the discovery in a tomb of a cheese that is nearly 3,300 years old. In Egypt, cattle breeding is a tradition that dates back to prehistoric times. As soon as it arrived in Africa 1,500 years ago, the river buffalo was adopted by the inhabitants of the Nile Valley. The banks of the Great River and the wetlands which border it are silty and soggy, and prove to be perfectly suited to the bovid's natural requirements. Though in some oases in the south, the buffalo still works these flooded lands. In the north of the country, its breeding has gradually been modeled on that of the dryland species, cattle and goats, to produce milk and meat.
I am Isam Mui Abu Shanab, a cattle dealer from Shama in the Manufia province. I breed these buffalo. It's my job, and it's been passed down from father to son. This is my only job. It's my daily occupation. The breed I own is of Italian origin. Its ancestors are Italian, but we've crossbreeded them with the Egyptian race. This crossbreed offers a better quality milk. For us, it's the best milk we can produce. And for the meat too, it's the best quality.
Almost 4.2 million river buffalo now live in Egypt, where they bear the local name gamoose. They are often fed with fodder, grown by the breeders themselves. Bursim, or Alexandrian clover, a legume rich in protein, is the main vegetable fed to the animals. It is excellent for the production of buffalo milk.
I prefer the buffalo because it's very productive, and its milk is more expensive than cow's milk.
Unlike the Southeast Asian buffalo, Mediterranean river buffalo have a coarse coat on their bodies, the result of possible adaptation to a colder and drier environment. Although the buffalo is an animal meant for production, its owner's esteem for it is very visible. He cleans them every morning, shining its coat and activating its blood circulation. The animal is the object of tender, loving care.
It's like when you wake up in the morning, you wash your face and make your bed. Well, this animal, I owe it to God to take care of it and keep it clean. As she gives to you, you have to give back to her, to wash her, remove the mud and rub her body, so that she absorbs the sun's heat, so she feels good and brings you a good day.
Milk is the white gold of the Nile Delta. It has been a favorite on Egyptian tables for over 3,000 years, long before the arrival of the buffalo. But in the end, the Egyptian connoisseur quickly detected buffalo milk's exceptional qualities and its many benefits. It is richer in lipids, minerals, and trace elements than that of cow, goat, or even sheep milk.
For our milk, we believe that everything is a gift. We have an old proverb that goes, "The more you give, the more milk you get in return."
Different cheeses from buffalo milk are produced in Egypt, including the famous domestication. While some breeders sell their buffalo milk to industrial dairies, others, such as Assam and his family, make their own cheese. After leaving the precious milk to rest overnight, the domestication is made the next day. This fresh cheese is obtained after a first salting of the milk, followed by stirring, pressing, and finally, a final salting after draining to facilitate the conservation of the product that brings honor to his house. Every Saturday morning in the town of Minouf, the cattle market is held. It's worthy of the great markets of the East, vibrant with unique ancient atmosphere. Issam goes there every week. He wouldn't miss this meeting of buffalo enthusiasts for anything in the world. Here, breeders from all over the Nile Delta meet around their animals. A gathering of interested parties, all here for business, feeling buffalo backs and rumps, inspecting the mouths, gauging the coveted animals before entering into tough negotiations. In Egypt, the buffalo herd produces 500,000 gallons of milk and more than 100,000 tons of meat each year. Sometimes, like today, SM comes to sell an animal. The sale is concluded with several taps on the hand and a little milk splashed on the animal as a sign of blessing. As it became an all-around versatile beast, the river buffalo took root in the delta from the Indus to the Mediterranean. It is found today in Egypt, but also in Iran, Iraq, Turkey, the Balkans, and of course in Italy, where it's used in the production of the famous mozzarella di bufala. Man established another relationship with the swamp buffalo. He took it on board ships to the islands of the Indian Ocean. It still participates in working the fields, and a spiritual and cultural bond gradually developed. As soon as it arrived in Bali, the buffalo was adopted by the Bali Aga, the first inhabitants of the island, who still worship it. Wherever it settles, the buffalo helps humans with its large hoof, amphibious body, and maneuverability. Here it excels in the rice fields, where it allows the cultivation of the precious and nourishing cereal. But here too, it is gradually being replaced by motorized machines. Yet in Bali, the buffalo is still the subject of a great reverence, superior to all other animals. The population has partly adopted the ancient cult of the bovid and still celebrates it in certain temples and in religious ceremonies. Even when it passes from life to death, the animal continues to interest Indonesians. Some parts of the buffalo's body are transformed into works of art. Skulls and bones are sculpted to pay spiritual and artistic homage to the animal. Imad has carried on this tradition for 3 generations.
When I sculpt a buffalo skull, I feel both joy and sadness. Because this buffalo has worked with the farmers. She plowed the rice paddies and was in stables helping the farmer. I try to sculpt it into a work of art so that it serves us all. And so that I can sell it to the tourists who come to see my work. When I work on these sculptures, I stay very focused on my work so that there are no flaws, so the work is perfect, flawless, and beautiful. I am inspired by my thoughts. I try to create the most beautiful Balinese patterns, which we call util on the buffalo skulls. I also use bird motifs, insects, or nagas, which are a kind of legendary snake dragon, as models. I feel pride when I work on buffalo skulls. When I sculpt the large imposing buffalo head, before starting, I ask my ancestors that my work be beautiful and that it may please my customers.
A symbolic and mystical figure, the buffalo is still used to work the fields. And like in many places in the world, animal pulling gives people new ideas for competitions. Despite its slow and easygoing demeanor, the buffalo turns out to be a formidable sprinter. When encouraged, this mass of muscles can reach phenomenal speeds. The men here participate in a unique sport with their fellow workers, the Makepung. Taking its roots in ancient gestures from the different stages of rice cultivation, in their own way, these buffalo races celebrate a bond uniting humans and their animals. A young woman, Resti, begins to be accepted in the competitions. My passion for Makepung and for buffalo started at a very young age. My father always took me to the Makepung to his training, to wash the buffaloes, to feed them. At first, my dad didn't allow me to ride. I became a jockey in secret. Even though the buffalo is big, I'm not afraid because I know how to control it against my opponents. And even if they're all male jockeys, I can face them, even if I'm a woman. There are two buffalo races, one on wet ground and the other on dry ground. Resti is only allowed to practice the less dangerous one, the Makepung Lampit, which is run on wet ground. It celebrates the fertilization of the rice field and is practiced in soggy rice paddies, standing on a wooden board symbolizing the plow. The Makepung Cikar race attracts the most people and thrills the crowds. It takes place on dry ground. Makepung Cikar has its roots in the rice harvest. At the time, coming home from the harvest, the drivers brought back the rice in their wagons pulled by the buffalo. They chased each other to get home quickly, so the buffalo could eat. Tomorrow is the day of a great event, the Governor's Cup. The most famous Makepung Cikar race, which is still reserved for men only, much to Resti's dismay. Her uncle, also a jockey, will represent the family. As in many rural families, the whole Resti family is involved in raising buffalo. The families take great pride in their working animals, which have now become race animals. They're a precious possession that is worth all the sacrifices, and especially all the care. A few hours before the race, Resti will personally take care of her uncle's team. But she doesn't forget the other animals, including the two bantangs in the house. These small bovines, common in Bali, with a tan coat and doe-like air, are also used to work the rice paddies. Thinner than their imposing cousins, these animals are more comfortable on narrower and steeper terraced plots. To have the best buffalo at these events, we have taken care of them from when they were young. We choose high-legged buffaloes, quite symmetrical, with a straight chest. There you see it, the beautiful horns. And when they are adults, their price can reach hundreds of millions of Indonesian rupees, up to $12,000. Before the race, I give them traditional preparations. First palm sugar, which I boil until melted. Then I cool it down and add some eggs. Then I pour this mixture into a bottle. I give the drink to the buffalo to make it breathe deeper, run faster, and be stronger. Since I'm small and the buffalo is tall, it's a bit difficult to put the bottle in the buffalo's mouth. That's why I ask my dad for help. In Bali, the houses of Hindu families all have a small outside temple dedicated to prayer. Daily offerings, the kanang sari, are placed here in the form of small baskets filled with flower petals and sometimes grains of rice, topped with a stick of incense to symbolize gratitude to gods and demons. Buffalo races are of great importance to Resti and her people. They are a highlight of rural and family life, which strengthens ties and represent the whole clan in the eyes of society. They are also the occasion for contemplation to invoke the help of the divinities. It's race day. Buffalo and riders are in the starting blocks. In the past, farmers returning from the fields, laden with their precious harvest, hurried to reach the village first, trying to overtake the carts of their neighbors. These drivers unknowingly invented today's buffalo races, which are meeting growing popularity. They are a celebration between neighbors, between friends and family. This bond unites these people to their buffalo. In South India or Thailand, the races have jockeys perched on the rump of the animal. But the Balinese Makepung is the only discipline in Asia to feature buffalo chariots. The jockeys are in a trance during the race as they harangue their animals. Some go so far as to whip them with studded sticks, a violent practice which, fortunately, is increasingly criticized by the public. On this day, Resti's uncle did not win his race. He is greeted with relief by his niece. She is a little worried about him and their animals. After the race comes the ritual of bathing in the sea. It's a natural treatment with healing properties that relaxes muscles and heals wounds. It is also a moment of sharing between Resti and her two champions, Beauty and her beasts, that also seem to appreciate the sweet moment. On these islands in the sea, at the edge of the world, for millennia, people have pursued their adventures, inviting their animal companions to take part with them. During these conquests, men, women, and buffalo took care of each other and established a relationship in which each seemed to have found their place. After reaching South Africa and Australia, the buffalo continued its conquest of the wetlands with an accident. In the 19th century, the sinking of a transatlantic ship with some of these horned beasts on board offered the buffalo a new territory, the Amazon. At the beginning, there were only 30. Now they number 500,000, thanks to their capacities for adaptation. They represent the largest land animal population on the subcontinent. They invaded the wetlands to become the goose that lays the golden egg for people who until then lived mainly from fishing. It is on these beaches of the alluvial island of Marajo, bordered by the Atlantic Ocean in the north of Brazil, that buffalo miraculously survived a shipwreck and took their first steps on this land. As the ship transporting them from Indochina to French Guiana sank offshore, the surviving buffalo swam ashore. Left to their own devices in the mangroves and swamps of Tucumã, they managed to survive and reproduce quickly. Then men captured and retamed them. The races present today on the island have been selected for local needs, such as pulling and production of cheese, leather, and meat. In the town of Sore, as on the rest of the island, the buffalo is now an integral part of the landscape. It is raised in every house, and it's not uncommon for the animal to roam in the street. It helps with domestic chores and aids everyone in their work. For children and adolescents, it is practically a pet that they enjoy riding. Even the police ride buffalo here. Providing hundreds of services, the buffalo has become emblematic in Marajo and a great economic asset that the inhabitants would have a hard time living without. Even today, buffalo breeders are trying to imagine new uses for the animal. Some highlight its unique abilities for walking between land and sea, to help make visitors become aware of the beauty and fragility of the island. Geronimo is one of them. The old man and his buffalo.
The people here of my generation treat the buffalo like an integral part of our ecosystem, and it's true, they are. If you take away the buffalo, it's like taking a triangle with 3 sides and removing one of the sides. It's no longer a triangle. It would be the same for Marajo if you take away our buffalo and tourism. In truth, the island of Marajo shows tourists only the tip of the iceberg. The visitor doesn't know anything more about Marajo. The tourist arriving here wants to discover our culture, which is very beautiful, and our crafts. And honestly, the buffalo is essential for that.
Buffaloes are proving to be a great way to explore the area. This is the magic of these buffalo rides, which rely on their ease to walk in wet terrain. The bovid is undoubtedly the best way to experience this wild nature and observe in total immersion the species that live here.
People are coming from all over the world who have ridden camels, zebras, and hippos before. And when they arrive here, it's normal that we offer them the possibility to ride our buffalo.
For Geronimo, the rhythm of the buffalo is not the same as the horse. Buffalo must not be rushed. One mustn't ask too much of it, but it can go everywhere.
Here in Sao Geronimo, with the buffalo, we can even take you for a swim in the Bay of Marajo. This ride is very popular. People like it a lot, and they say, I rode on camels in Africa. Now I'm swimming with a buffalo in Marajo.
For the inhabitants of Marajo, water buffalo have become real partners, companions at every moment of life in the great outdoors. But they're also an important resource for their meat, their milk, or their leather. While the most modest inhabitants raise a few buffalo for their multiple products, the owners of large farms have huge herds which sometimes number hundreds of heads. They are practically the equal of the famous American cowboys with their herds of cows and oxen. Ava is a veterinarian. She found herself caring almost exclusively for buffalo as other farm animals became secondary in Marajo. She ended up falling in love with the bovid and became a breeder herself. The buffalo is our whole life here. Certainly, this is my whole life. I couldn't live without all this. This is what my father built. My life is here, in the fields, among the buffalo, training an animal to be my friend. Without them, I could not live. The qualities of the buffalo today have made it an essential partner in all the inhabitants' activities. Tourism, transport, and food. It supplies most of the local milk production and meat from the region. We consume a lot of meat in Para. We eat a lot of buffalo meat. The majority of our meat consumption is buffalo, though before it was mainly beef. Buffalo meat was rejected in the beginning, but today in Brazil, it is a very sought-after meat. In our part of the island of Marajo, there are hardly any cows. We only work with the buffalo. Yet though domestic buffalo have many positive qualities, these large herds impact the environment. Repeated trampling by the ever-increasing number of cattle weakens and compacts the soil, which is unsuitable for this type of animal. There are organizations that wanted to put an end to the buffalo here in Marajo, saying that it is doing ecological damage because it is a heavy animal. Marajo's soil is fragile, and they found the buffalo digging and destroying the soil with its great weight. But because we can't imagine life on the island without the buffalo, when they suggested putting an end to the buffalo here, the people rebelled against it. The population opposed the idea. Sometimes, buffalo escape from their herd and return to the forest and mangrove. This return to the wild in the absence of predators is not without consequences. As in the north of Australia or Cuba, wild buffalo become invasive and degrade the natural environment by treading on the banks of watercourses and grazing on vegetation. Their mass and gargantuan appetite deprive many wild species of vital resources. Due to this dangerous imbalance, controlling the number of buffalo on Marajo is now necessary. The buffalo permitted the conquest of wetlands and provided us with many products and benefits. It has accompanied mankind, even in our cultural and spiritual practices. But the human-buffalo duo now faces a new challenge. Humans must learn to beware of the animal's exceptional adaptive capacities, as well as the ever-increasing calls for yield and productivity. Only this way will we be able to continue to promote the buffalo's unique qualities acquired over the course of our common history.